Hello, everyone. I'm happy to see you on our webinar. Um, and the theme of our webinar is how to choose a cloud provider in 2021. My name is Dmitry Karaulov. I will be your moderator, and my accountability is cloud and storage presale in Gcore Labs. And I want to introduce our participants. Our organizer of this event is Gcore Labs, which is a global provider with cutting edge features and advanced security, which provides services for all modern web needs like CDN, hosting, storage, media platform, security, and cloud. Gcore Labs offers customers a first-class cloud infrastructure for computing, storing, protecting, and delivering the content with delays up to 30 milliseconds worldwide. And our second participant, but far from being the second company on the market, global leading provider of enterprise open source solutions, Linux, cloud, containers, and Kubernetes technologies, company Red Hat. Red Hat helps customers to develop cloud native applications, automate, secure, and manage complex environments with support, training, and consulting services. So, what is the plan for our event? Firstly, we are going to listen speech from Red Hat and Gcore Labs. Secondly, we will discuss topics in Fireside chat with questions and answers. And finally, after the webinar, I would like to invite you to the after party, where you will be able to talk with our participants and speakers personally. The link to join will be sent to the chat at the end of the webinar. So, let me introduce our speakers. Please meet Sasha Rosenbaum. Sasha, she's senior manager, and her accountability is managed OpenShift black belts at Red Hat. Sasha is helping enterprise customers successfully migrate to managed OpenShift on customers' favorite public cloud. Hello, Sasha.
Hi, how are you doing today?
Thank you. I'm fine. And what about you?
I'm good. It's early morning for me, so that's a good start of the day.
Yeah, I think so. So, our second participant and speaker, Selot Weiner, cloud platform department head. He built cloud in Gcore Labs and increasing its presence all over the world. Managing and coordination of teams' work is his main accountability. Hello, Seva.
Yeah, hi Dima, how are you?
Thank you, thank you. And what is the time of the day for you?
Yeah, it's around 5 p.m. in Moscow.
Oh, Moscow, America, different continents, but
Yeah.
only one subject and topic, which we are going to discuss today. So, hello guys, and thank you for joining us. Um, let's start the event with diving into cloud services trends in 2021 with our first speaker, Sasha Rosenbaum. So, Sasha, please go ahead.
Thank you. So let me know when you can see my screen and I can get started. All right, cool. So we're talking about choosing a cloud, but I'm gonna kind of take it to a slightly different topic and talk about the reality of the multi-cloud that we exist in right now, right? Because I think this reality is here to stay, and we kind of need to adapt our strategies to this particular reality that exists. Anyway, I want to introduce myself first. So I'm Sasha Rosenbaum, and I work as a team lead for managed OpenShift black belts at Red Hat. And I've worked at Microsoft and GitHub before, and I've worked in consulting as well. I've been a developer and I've been in DevOps or Ops or whatever we call it today. I've been briefly in developer relations, and I spent quite a significant time in what we can call customer success or technical sales, right? And that's what my team does right now. It's kind of helping customers be successful with the technology, right? So because the technology is complicated, and so in addition to just kind of, giving people the product today, we also need to help them onboard and be successful with that product. And that's something that lots of companies are realizing, and that's kind of how all these roles came to be. So let's talk about the topic of the day. So I'm going to start with the numbers. All of the numbers in my presentation are coming from either Red Hat research or some of the industry firms doing research. So this slide may sound contentious to some people because we're talking about public cloud and we're talking about IaaS, PaaS, and SaaS as grouped into public cloud. But we're kind of going by how companies report revenue. So companies actually report SaaS. If you look at, say, Google or Microsoft revenue statements, their Office products, for instance, which are largely software as a service, are reported as cloud revenue. And that's the case for most companies. So basically, most software as a service products that are actually considered cloud products. So if we look at the existence of public cloud right now, infrastructure as a service offerings are dominated by 6 to 8 clouds, primarily by mostly like even 3 or 4. But we all know the names, right? It's like Azure, AWS, Alibaba, and then it goes into like Oracle, IBM, and stuff like that. For PaaS, we see significantly more companies offering some kind of PaaS. So to give you an example, Heroku is a platform as a service offering. It doesn't obviously have IaaS offering, but it lets you build your applications on a platform as a service, right? And there's a lot of these companies. It's about 100 different companies in the industry. And then if we get into software as a service, there's like thousands of offerings out there, and everything that you can think of today is offered as software as a service. And this is kind of like a huge shift for the industry as well, that everything is offered as a subscription, and everything is offered like auto-updated. Even your operating system now updates automatically and stuff like that. So, all of this trend is very clear of where we're going to. Now, in terms of data center versus public cloud, there's different numbers that come from different reports. So for instance, we're quoting IBM and AWS here, which have very different numbers, but IBM thinks only 20% of all the applications in the world is in the public cloud. AWS actually thinks that only 5% of all applications in the world is in a public cloud, which means that data center revenues are, $2 to $4 trillion for 2020, and also means that basically the public cloud is still a tiny percentage of all the applications in the world. There's still a lot of companies that are considering this move, and there's still a lot of revenue that the cloud companies can tap as well. So again, the numbers show us that the cloud is still in the early days, despite the fact that there's all this buzz and every company is doing a cloud transformation and all of this stuff. Despite that fact, we can see that the cloud is actually just making its first steps in terms of being mature and ready technology. And also there's lots of different choices and there's lots of different challenges that companies are facing when it comes to cloud. So if we ask people if multi-cloud really exists, we can get very different answers, right? So if you ask thought leaders, or if you ask vendors, or if you ask analysts, you might get a very binary answer. So like there's a yes, there is a multi-cloud, or no, there is no multi-cloud. There's no such thing. But in reality, if we talk to actual companies on the market, we actually see that this is more of a gray scale, right? So it's not a binary answer. And most companies actually are not able to choose a single cloud and put all of their eggs in one basket. Like for most, especially for large companies, right? A small company might be able to do that, but for large companies, it depends on acquisitions that they make, right? Lots of different, lots of big companies acquire a smaller company, and then it ends up with they have to basically support the software that they already had, and it may be on a different platform than the existing software and stuff like that. they might be dealing with new regulations. So some new regulation comes out, and even though they were beforehand bought into a particular cloud platform, now they have to move to another one. And different integrations with different things, right? Some cloud offering may support an integration with a particular service that they need better than others. So actually, basically things are open to bids, right? So for most actual companies out there in the world, the multi-cloud actually does exist, and they are actually deployed into multiple clouds at the same time. It's also that like it's not usually that a single application will be deployed to multiple clouds, right? But if we look over the landscape of IT for an enterprise, we will definitely find all sorts of different platforms. So if we think about the strategy that people take, right? If we really dig into it, and I will start with the right hand of the slide, but for some groups, right, there's only public cloud, it's all self-managed, and they get to make this choice, right? So about 20% of companies we talk to tell us that like, oh, this is not a problem, right? I can choose one particular public cloud, and then I can be all invested, and this is fine. Right? But for the centralized IT groups, for large companies, what we see is about 40% of them have kind of planned architecture, right? So they chose a cloud, or for instance, multiple clouds, and they basically, plan the whole strategy and security and consistency and everything, right? And then lots of them, so about 40% of companies end up with basically accidental architecture, right? So it came from acquisitions, it came from different mandates from the top, it came from different requirements that are better supported by certain technology and stuff like that. And so basically, stuff just happens. It's also like lots of most big companies have a lot of shadow IT as well, so they might even not be aware sometimes of what's deployed where, and who's expensing a particular cloud platform on their corporate card and stuff like that. So that's the reality. Now, if we think about how we plan on going to the cloud, one thing is pretty clear, and that's that open source is basically defining kind of where the industry is going. So these numbers actually come from a GitHub report, and so we know that there's 100 million open source repositories out there in the world, 100 million plus, right? And obviously GitHub is not the only platform, but it's the largest one. So we can see that there's lots of different projects, and there's about 40 million different developers contributing to open source. In fact, I think this number might be actually higher based on later numbers that GitHub released. And then 2.1 million businesses are consuming open source, right? So open source is here to stay, and open source is effectively defining the strategy, and it's defining the strategy for both data centers on premises and for public cloud. And then there's challenges with open source, right? Open source is not necessarily an easy thing to deal with, because previously you could maybe buy something from one company and kind of have your full technology stack supported by particular people, whereas this is a CNCF landscape, right? And lots of people use this slide to kind of exemplify the point that there's lots of different technologies, and you couldn't even put together a legit cloud platform, a legit application platform, without using lots and lots of different tools. And these tools kind of keep moving, right? Everything is being developed, everything is being retired, right? So you constantly need to play catch up with different technologies. So on the bright side, there's lots and lots of innovation that's happening, but on the less bright side, we kind of have to continue basically adopting all these new technologies just to be successful with the stuff that we're working on. So if we look at the companies that are actually successful and have some high degree of success with public cloud and with the open source world that we live in today, these are kind of the things that end up happening for most of them, right? So these folks tell us that they look into a number of things, which are primarily around consistency, right? So the first thing that they look at is operational consistency, right? So if I had to define different operational processes for every single application based on where it lives, right? It's just completely time consuming. It's a drain. It's lots of people just responsible for keeping the lights on, and it's basically not something that can scale, right? So if you can, and again, different offerings tend to be different. So there's some of this that you will have to deal with no matter what. But if you can standardize on how we do security and how we do compliance and how we do operations, how we do deployments and stuff like that, then lots of it can be basically it makes you more successful and allows your operations people to scale more efficiently. Then the second one is technology consistency. So that's where you see platforms like Kubernetes or OpenShift come into play. And the biggest reason that people are using Kubernetes is that it is consistent across the board, right? So technically, you take a container and you can basically throw it into anywhere and it can run on any environment. And yes, there's some disparity there too, because like different clouds have their own flavor of Kubernetes, right? One of the values of OpenShift, I'm biased here, right? But I work for Red Hat. So one of the values of OpenShift is that it can be deployed across multiple platforms. So it kind of doesn't matter where you run, you're going to have that operational consistency. But basically, if you can standardize on technology, so you're not dealing with different OSs, different deployment patterns, different architecture patterns, right? And you can standardize on one, that definitely helps you save time and money. And then the next one, and again, we talked about open source. Building against open APIs is also something that helps you maintain consistency, because again, there's always multiple standards for everything that we do. But if we can have basically adopt ourselves to a standard that works across platforms, then we can basically make sure that we are building something once, and then if we had to change it later, we could pretty easily change it, right? So something like standard container images, for instance, is very helpful, or standard runtime, or other different standards for technologies that allow you to essentially deploy the same application into different environments if you need to. And then one thing that we like to forget sometimes is understanding the data locality, because lots of people talk about multi-cloud or hybrid cloud and basically envision that we're going to work across the world, right? We're going to scale into Australia data centers. We're going to, have an application in the cloud that consumes data from the application on-prem and such things. It is possible today to some extent. Like, I'm talking to you from America, and the latency is not too bad, right? But it is like there's still limitations, and data has gravity, right? And there's only the speed of light is still a limitation to how fast the data travels. So when you're planning your deployments, you need to also understand what kind of data. So if you move into the cloud, what kind of data can you move versus what kind of data you can't move, and how you're going to plan for latency that surrounds operating data across multiple locations. So that's a very, very quick summary of cloud trends and multi and hybrid cloud trends. And hopefully this starts a good discussion for later. So thank you. And you can find me on Twitter or on GitHub as DivineOps, and ask me any questions that you might have after this.
Okay, thank you, Sasha. It was really interesting, and we all see that open source products is a really tough thing, yes, and Red Hat helps customers to deploy and to use open source products with easy way. Yeah, thank you, Sasha. Guys, I would like to remind you that you don't forget to ask your questions in chat, and we will discuss them all during our questions and answers session. So, our next speaker is Всеволод Weiner, Cloud Platform Department Head. Всеволод, give us some insights on how to choose a cloud provider in 2021. Всеволод, please, your turn.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dmitry. Thank you, Sasha. Hello, everyone, again. My name is Всеволод Weiner. I'm product owner of cloud products in GCO Labs. And today we discuss about the 10 criteria and technologies you should know, and we will share with you our experience with our existing customers, what will be the main criteria to choose the public cloud or private cloud or whatever. But before, a few words about the GCO Labs, what we do. So GCO Labs is the worldwide edge and cloud service provider around the globe. We have more than 100 data centers or points of presence around the globe and 3.5 terabit per second monthly peak loads from our customers and clients. So our headquarters in Luxembourg, and we present several products like CDN, DDoS protection, object storage, cloud product, including infrastructure layer and platform layer, video platform, and other services. So I would like to share some criteria, what kind of customers would like to choose public cloud and what the main criteria for the service provider. So the first one is global coverage. Of course, it's very important for global customers who has customers around the globe or clients around the globe. And of course, this is one of the main criteria about the latency, about the edge coverage, and one of the points and one of the big innovative services is edge technologies, and cloud moves to the edge. So core places or core regions plus edge regions with CDN provides the best latency and good coverage around the globe. Another point is high reliability and security, of course. So that means customer will choose the best SLAs for uptime. And of course, container technologies, OpenShift, Kubernetes will help with that to provide high reliability for their business applications and workloads. Of course, compliance with international safety standards. It's about personal data, where you will store this data with the specific countries. So all of these things very important for the end customers. And of course, if we discuss about the financial structures, PCI DSS, ISO, GDPR, and other certifications is so important for each customer. Of course, if we discuss about the big guys for gaming or entertainment or public services, of course, DDoS protection, this is the main point to protect their application. And of course, we discuss about the encryption. So three types of encryptions around the save their data. So data in rest, when you encrypt your volume, data in transfer like HTTPS or TLS, and of course, data in use. And some kind of technologies like Intel SGX provide special encryption in the memory to protect your data when application use sensitive data. Third number is premium technical support. Of course, customers would like to have dedicated technical support and have the best technical answers as soon as possible. And when you can provide this kind of support, of course, this is the main also point where customer will choose your product. Of course, you have self-service portal or API or the modern technologies. But if you can help with solution architect, the end application, or how to implement their workloads in your cloud, what is the best solution, maybe some reference architecture to provide for the end customers, it will be so helpful. And of course, 24/7 support will be, of course, very important for the end customers if we have any issues with applications or infrastructure as well. The fourth point is flexible pricing. Of course, a lot of big hyperscalers has shadow costs. Yeah, so this is the big pain for the end customers, and they would like to have very pure reports per each public cloud or any kind of service provider. So if you can provide pay-as-you-go model with per minute verification and rates, with custom configurations, it will be more suitable for the end customer compared with shadow pricing and per hour pricing, whatever. So this is the big point too. Another big story about the migration and recovery support. So this is the most big point from last month. Yeah, so every customer think about the disaster recovery, but not a lot of customer has disaster recovery. And of course, if you will provide your public cloud, migration is very important point, how to migrate their workloads to the clouds. Yeah, so we can separate legacy systems. Yeah, so this is monolith. When you will try to replicate or migrate to the new cloud, the new place. Yeah, and if we discuss about the containers, when you don't have any vendor lock-in, for example, for the Kubernetes or OpenShift, it's more easily. But if you can help to migrate their workloads, it will be so suitable for the end customers to replicate their workloads to the cloud. Another point is customization, when you can provide additional functionality or additional features in your cloud. Of course, you have a lot of features, a lot of services in the cloud, but each customer is independent. Yeah, so if you can provide some special feature, special technology for your customer as soon as possible, of course, customer will choose you and we will provide their workloads in your infrastructure. Another point, yeah, about the global industry trends. Yeah, so we see our customers more and more integrate the new industry trends in their applications and their workloads. For example, AI and ML is very popular to integrate to the entertainment workloads or applications. For example, object detection or fintech technologies also integrate object detection to pay for any kind of, I don't know, shops or retail also. So this is very popular things. Also Siri, so this is the voice recognition. So it's very popular, and more customers try to find AI platform to build their ML models, train and inference in the public cloud. Also, big data tools very popular, and especially popular with integration with ML plus big data. Also, we can see cloud gaming as a service. Yeah, so a lot of customers and the new startups grow around the globe because 5G, the new networks expand and grow fastly, and the cloud gaming has more and more popular around the globe. So a lot of requests for highly demanded GPU for the service providers to provide this GPU. So this is the big things and the new trends for 2021. Also, the new criteria, it's about the multi-cloud or hybrid cloud as well. So about the hybrid cloud, when customer would like to spawn any kind of virtual physical instances or resources on demand. Yeah, so this is like a private cloud, but would like to integrate with the public cloud solution. For example, they would like to store their private or sensitive data in their own data center, and for example, try to expand their business for the specific regions. So they would like to integrate with the public cloud and have the single self-service portal or API to manage their infrastructure around the globe. And of course, Terraform provider or any kind of provider to use your infrastructure at the code. This is the big point for the end customer and manage their heterogeneous infrastructure around the globe. And of course, public cloud and the private cloud as the separate solution also very popular, but we see the trend. So a lot of big customers, SMB and enterprise customers would like to move to the multi-cloud solution also. One thing also, the cloud plus CDN, how I said before. So cloud is the core infrastructure where you can bring your main workloads, but the main thing to distribute your content around the globe and provide edge solution nearest with your customer. So this is the big point, and if you have seamless integration between your cloud solution and the CDN, It's a big choice for the end customer, especially for the gaming, entertainment, or web technologies, retail, or whatever, where you can deliver your contact. Yeah, and and the last point, compute instances in bare metal for a few click. So this is the big point. So virtualization and container move very smoothly and move forward with that. But a lot of customers, yeah. So we discussed about the in zeros, yes. So physical servers will be delivered for the end customers or hosting. After that, so we have infrastructure as a service where we deliver virtual instances. After that, containers, function as a service, but customers really love bare metal. Yeah, so this is the physical servers, and they would like to have physical servers the same one which they have virtual instances. So the bare metal, this is the new trend to deliver their application and have the best performance from the physical machine. And of course, they can install OpenShift or container services, but doesn't have any additional layers from the virtualization. So they have bare metal as a service with the container services or operation system, the same like they have the virtualization. This is the big point for the end customers too. All right, thank you very much. This is the 10 points why customer choose service providers per specific criteria. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask me after this conversation. Also, we will help migrate their workloads to our clouds, and we have the special event. So if you would like to migrate to our cloud, we provide 1 month for free or 3 months for free if you sign contract for 2 years. Also, if you would like to have some consultants, so we will provide that also too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Vsevolod. It was so useful, and I'm sure that this information will help our listeners to make proper decisions. Again, guys, I want to remind you that all participants could ask your question in chat. Looks like we are ready to move on the next section, fireside chat with our speakers, and let me start with the next question. So, Sasha, you told that any environment fits to multi-cloud, and I see that about 10 years ago, it was a best practice to have your IT infrastructure on your own equipment. And about 5 years ago, cloud became a leader. And now we see bare metal stream with simple provisioning as virtual machines and containers. The answer is next. Do you believe that bare metal would become easy tool to deploy your infrastructure as Kubernetes and OpenShift solution? And do you find there any overhead?
So I think there's definitely a trend for clouds to offer bare metal, which is kind of a new thing. Um, and I think technology kind of moves in a pendulum, right? So like we do things and then we're like, oh, we can do things better, and then we continue to evolve, and then we're like, oh no, what we did 20 years ago was a great idea. So like we go back there. And I think this, like, you can notice this stuff being circular. I From my standpoint, right? And again, I work for Red Hat and I work with containers. So like, what I see is a lot of trending towards like doing smaller and smaller things, right? So like, we moved from bare metal to VMs to containers, and I'm seeing this trend continuing too. But there's also definitely demand for bare metal. I think this is also like in a way, people are just trying to replicate their data centers, right? So because like there are some workloads that are impossible to move to something like a Kubernetes platform or even VMs, right? And so folks are excited about leaving the data center, but they need the cloud to support essentially being the data center for them to move. So,
Thank you. And what about you, Selot? What are you thinking about?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Sasha. Of course, so a lot of IT departments for the big companies thinking about. So this is the cycle. Yeah. So we have the bare metal. After we have the virtualization in containers. One of the big point for the containers is very fast to replicate your infrastructure around the globe. Yeah. So you have the single application or infrastructure side, yeah, where you can bring your application. But of course, the big thing to provide the performance, yeah, if you would like to have the production ready or high load system, of course you will delete your any kind of layers, yeah. So of course, containers and container platforms will help you to migrate from any kind of infrastructure. But we discuss about the cloud native applications, yeah, about the new projects and whatever. We also have a lot of legacy systems and the big customers who use the monoliths, yeah. And one of the big points and the big pain for these customers, how to transfer these legacy systems to the cloud native applications. So this is the first thing. And the bare metal will help with that. So bare metal not about the containers, but the bare metal as the service where you can bring your legacy system. If we discuss about the container system, yeah, you can bring your OpenShift or Kubernetes inside the bare metal server, deploy each bare metal as the worker for 10 minutes, yeah, because you have full automatization from the cloud service provider side. Yeah, for the virtualization side, I think so. It's the best way to use for the dev or staging. Yeah, but the bare metal, I think, from the infrastructure layer it's our current future. Yeah, so this is the main idea for the big guys who use the cloud native applications. So they will continue works with the Kubernetes or any kind of container platforms. But what we will choose, like bare metal or virtual instances, of course, we would like to choose bare metal plus virtualization and have the single network connectivity between them.
It's a very interesting point. One more question is about multi-cloud and about what are you thinking about multi-cloud in artificial intelligence and with, of course, 5G bandwidths. Uh, who'll be the first? Sasha, please.
I guess I'm the one looking at you, so yeah. I think so AI ML is like the new hot thing, right? And so everybody's trying to do it. And there's some excellent offerings from the public clouds in terms of doing it for you, right? So like kind of like you don't have to be a data scientist to use their AI ML platforms, but at the same time, they're customizable enough to offer what you need, right? Because like I'll take Microsoft for instance, right? They have cognitive services, and I think Google and AWS have as well. But basically, you can contact an API and give it a problem, and it will respond with the response, like identify if there's a woman in a picture or something like that, right? And then like you always, for most customers, you always get into the point where like, okay, but we need to train our own models, right? And then, okay, well, you can do it yourself. Like, well, yeah, but we don't have a data scientist. And so like you get into this, like we want it customizable, but also for it to take care of this. So I think all of the clouds kind of are making steps towards that. And also like we said, SaaS, like there's some SaaS offerings around that too. So like, in addition to the big guys in the public cloud, there's also SaaS products for this. I think realistically, it's a new space, and there's going to be continuing developing like different products that are answering the common questions, and we're going to eventually get to a more mature offering where I think is going to be software as a service ish type of thing, right? So you don't have to like write a bunch of Python and learn a bunch of math to be able to do AML stuff, but it's going to be kind of offered to you as a build your own adventure kind of building blocks.
Thank you so much. And I know that G-Core Labs has a platform for artificial intelligence. Several, could you comment?
Yeah. So this is a good point that so each cloud providers will have the marketplace with ready to use models which can integrate with to their application through REST API, for example. Yeah, so they have the good trained models, for example. Also, the companies or startups who has, for example, data scientists, and they would like to write the new model, yeah, and don't like to care about the infrastructure. Yeah, of course, AI platforms for each cloud providers will help with that to bring their ML model and concentrate in their points. And of course, if you have a lot of frameworks like TensorFlow, PyTorch, OpenVINO, or whatever, it will be helpful to train and inference your model, of course. But the big point, yeah, this is the new niche, and I think so. This is the will be the trend, and one of the big things around the edge. Yeah. So, for example, you train your model, but you need to deliver. You need to bring this already to use model around the globe. Yeah, so it should be the near with your end customer. So where you spawn your new ML model, yeah, so ready to use model is very important. And if you can use the edge technologies, you will be win in this game. So yeah, this is the new trend. Also 5G, yeah, 5G, it's another story. Yeah. And also it's about the edge technologies because you need to provide the big speed. Yeah. And you need to cover more and more space. Yeah. So it will be small data centers where you can bring your x86 servers, install NVMe infrastructure. Yeah. So it's network function virtualization. You have centralized federated gateway around the globe and bring the one 5G network. And of course, public cloud integrated with telcos. I think so. This is the next thing how telcos will be works with big cloud providers. And if cloud providers will be ready to use, will be ready to provide their infrastructure for 5G, so it's good enough. Yeah. So I mean, the network infrastructure should be ready for their kind of workloads. Yeah. And for example, if some kind of service providers provide the CDN technology, it's a good stuff, and you will be ready for the 5G and provide and integrate with telcos also. Yeah. So this is 2 points around the AI. So this is one thing, and the GPUs. Yeah, GPU it's another story. Yeah, so not a lot GPUs right now around the globe, especially NVIDIA. Yeah, but by the way, so if you can provide a lot of GPUs for voice recognition or object detection, yeah, to train your models, you will be winning that. For the 5G, your network infrastructure should be ready for this kind of bandwidth, of course, and provide the big latency and road for your end customers. And of course, I think so telcos and the telco infrastructure will be really integrate with the big cloud providers and edge providers too. Thank you.
Thank you, Sewell. The next question is Sasha. I heard that you said that cloud is only on the beginning stage, the entry level, um, and at the same time, multi-cloud is trend. And why multi-cloud is trend? What are you thinking about this statement in software and hardware perspective?
Yeah, I think a lot of times we forget that the reality doesn't always match like our planning, right? Like if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans, like kind of thing. Um, we can say like we want to choose one cloud and we want to move all of our applications there and whatever, but realistically, a migration is very hard, right? It's a labor intensive activity, and like you said, some things can't be moved off bare metal. Until recently, we didn't have bare metal in the cloud and stuff like that, right? So this is not it is a complicated issue, right? The second thing is a lot of companies don't want to be committed to a single cloud provider, right? Because it's a risk that you take. So at an executive level, you're like, okay, well, I will go give them all my money to one cloud provider, and then what happens, right? And I mean, as much as it sounds ridiculous, like even big companies can go out of business, like this happens. And so like what happens if the cloud provider goes away somehow or whatever? Like this is levels of risk that you take, or if they raise their prices or something like that happens. So that's one. And the other is like the thing that actually happens kind of accidentally, right? Like every single big company I've ever worked with has gone through multiple acquisitions like every year, right? And you acquire companies like, sometimes you acquire companies and they like run applications on their desktop, with Excel or like custom VBA and stuff like that. Like, I mean, stuff like this happens. Like I talk to people like, I'm in a DevOps community and people are always like, oh, DevOps is a solved problem with everybody deploys 100 times a day. I'm like, I see people uploading zip files with no source control, no pipeline, no anything. And you telling me that DevOps is like a solved problem and everybody's evolved and stuff like that. It's like future is here, but it's not evenly distributed, right? So like different people are in different stages of this journey. So I think multi-cloud is a reality, right? And so like you can choose the best cloud for you, but then again, like next time a new regulation happens and you need to be compliant with something, and then like, okay, well, I no longer can put stuff in, say, American data centers, and now I have to move them into Europe, and the European data centers don't support a certain compliance requirement and whatever. And so we're stuck here, right? So realistically, I think multi-cloud is here to stay.
Interesting point. Всеволод, do you want something to add?
Yeah, of course. So I would like to say several points. Yeah, first point is, of course, customers, if they would like to bring the new business and the current cloud provider can provide this location, they will choose another provider. Yeah, and they need to manage their infrastructure through both public clouds or private clouds and public cloud as well. Yeah, so this is already multi-cloud. Another point, yeah, of course. So you can choose one single provider. Yeah, but you know about the latest stories, and you need to have disaster recovery for any kind of risks. Yeah, so this is the big point if you would like to save your infrastructure and save your data. And if any kind of cloud providers can provide the disaster recovery tool, and for example, replicate your infrastructure for the primary data center or primary infrastructure for another one, for the second, or another public cloud or private infrastructure. So it's a good stuff and a good architecture, and you will save your money. Of course, it will be expensive, but you can say so you will save your data. Of course, backups and other stuff, not be very cool works. You need to check every, for example, week or month or whatever. Yeah, so but you will sleep very safety. Another thing, if you would like to use the multi-cloud strategy, of course you would like to. It's a heterogeneous infrastructure. Yeah, and in this case, you need to have the single platform like container platforms. If you have the legacy systems, you will use bare metal or virtual instances, but the main point is infrastructure is the code, yeah, or pipelines. If you have CI/CD tooling or whatever, but how Sasha said, so some kind of developers transfer zip files with the source codes, yeah, and so. A lot of interesting stories. But by the way, so a lot of good guys use tooling to have infrastructure as the code integrated with CI/CD, with provisioning tooling. So this is the good story to have single source of provisioning and manage your infrastructure. So if cloud providers can provide that, so no problems to manage, and DevOps will be very, very happy to manage all of this heterogeneous infrastructure. So this is the point. I'm really happy if customers say so. We are multi-cloud strategy company. Yeah, so I think so you will be safety and our infrastructure will be one of with another one. Of course, we can provide the safety infrastructure around our and other regions from one single self-service portal or one single provider. But yeah, so I would like to recommend to use the multi-cloud strategy, of course, or a hybrid solution when you have your own data center or your private cloud solution integrated with another public clouds. So this is the good story, I think so.
Okay, thank you. Guys, what about geography of multi-cloud? I guess that it's not necessarily to have multi-cloud in one region or in one location. What's the best way to build your own multi-cloud? Maybe it's geographically not near, uh, not nearest location, I guess.
Yeah,
What do you
I
think
think so.
about
It
Yeah.
it?
depends on workload. Oh, sorry, Sasha, go ahead.
No, you go. You go. You started.
All right, all right. So yeah. So I think so. Depends on workload. Yeah. So of course, customer would like to have the workload nearest with the end customer, but depends on the workload. Of course, you can, for example, have the replication between two location between Europe and United States, for example. Yeah, and replication works properly. It will be a synchronized replication, and it's okay for the customer. Or they have real-time application, and the latency should be very small. Yeah, so depends on the customer request. Yeah, in the most cases, I think so. Multi-cloud strategy and the regions which will be provided for the each cloud provider should be very nearest. For example, when we take, for example, Europe, it can be Frankfurt, Luxembourg, and Amsterdam, for example. So this is the good story about the workloads where customer need to provide a low latency solution. If we discuss about the, I don't know, backup, yeah, or I don't know, standby replica, and you would like to save your data from to another country, for example, and with 1,000 kilometers from your primary site, of course, you can bring that from the application level, yeah, for example, from database replication, or set the data disaster recovery tooling to replicate your existing virtual instance or volume from the primary site to the second site. So depends on the customer request.
Yeah, I think, if we look at the cloud strategy of most companies that I work with, if people are doing multi-cloud and hybrid cloud, they're still going to choose the data centers that are closest to their on-prem data centers. So kind of like, if your own data center is in a particular city or region, then you will choose the cloud provider data centers. And it's actually funny because the data centers usually cluster because there's particular like weather conditions and geography conditions that make data centers it makes some place a better place for a data center. So usually you will see a whole lot of data centers from different providers and from on-prem providers too in the same location. And of course, this helps like if you are actually forced to keep some of your applications in one data center and another set of applications in the cloud, or again, multi-cloud, then it helps with the data latency and consuming APIs and stuff like that. I think also I wouldn't say there's 100% for anything, but like I would not recommend trying to deploy a single application into multiple clouds, right? That's a little bit crazy. Again, sometimes it's not like that. Like sometimes you can consume a service, you can consume an AI based API from one cloud, and response time is sufficient that you can consume it in an application that is in a different cloud or on-prem and stuff like that. But definitely, like I don't see people deploying a single application to multiple clouds intentionally. I would say, although I've had this conversation about like that being a DR plan or something. I'm like, okay, I don't know, because you will have to, like, if it's a custom application, you will have to support two different architectures for the same application, which is probably not a great idea for a DR plan. But anyway, but what I'm seeing much more of is like you will have a set of applications here and a set of applications there and a set of applications in the third place, right? So that's very, very common.
Thank you, guys. So I need to check our questions from our listeners. Let me check, just a second. Okay, we have a question from Oscar Mulana. The question is, when it comes to multi-cloud solutions, what is your thoughts on network latency as it differs from vendor to vendor? How can we ensure we have consistent latency with our cloud services?
So would you like to take that? I feel like we've kind of answered that a little bit, but
Yeah, of course. So I would say so depends on the workload. Yeah. So if you can provide the single network connectivity or I don't know, so like a private BGP connection between those data centers, and you will have I don't know up to 5 or 10 milliseconds between the different cloud providers, and it will be works for your application. Okay, it's fine. So I think so. This is the how Sasha said. So depends on the services. Yeah. So it's very strange if you will bring the one service between other cloud providers. Yeah, so I think so. This is the business applications, which contain several services which you can bring through these cloud providers. Yeah, and depends on your workload if it will be suitable for 5 or 10 milliseconds or 2, 3, 4 milliseconds. So you need to have the nearest data centers between those service providers. Or if you would like to have, I don't know, so backup or disaster recovery, I think so it's not a matter for you. So our customers built the multi-strategy and multi-cloud solutions, and one of the requirements for the network latency around I would say so 10-15 milliseconds. Yeah, and depends on the kind of workload. If we discuss about the front end, yeah, and you would like to distribute your content, yeah, you can use I don't know virtual instance, which will be in AWS and the CDN in Gcore Labs, or we can switch that, so you can bring the instance in Gcore Labs or container in Gcore Labs and bring your content or some kind of release or whatever, which will be distributed through CDN or CI/CD tooling or whatever. Yeah, so it will be works properly and depends on your kind of workload or business application, your performance requirements. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the last question for Sasha, and we have time for finish. The last question, and we will go to our after party. The link you can see in chat box. The last question is from Cloud DXBIT. How we can differentiate cloud platforms? What key features that we need to look at to choose the cloud provider?
yeah. So I think several went through the presentation, so like maybe like rewatched it. Like there was a lot of key points, right? Um, and this is not an easy choice, right? Like there's usually people come with a whole list of requirements that they have, and your requirements depend on your particular situation. So and what you're trying to implement, right? Because for some people, DR is the most important thing. For some people, like low latency is the most important thing. For some people, compliance is the most important thing, right? So you have to choose a product based on what aspects are most important to you. You probably will never get 100% of what you want. And so treat it as like choosing a house, right? You're going to live there for 10 plus years. What things are non-negotiable versus what things you could live with, and kind of make an exception for the time being.
We can hear you, Dima.
No, thank you. I was muted. Once again, thank you guys for your speeches. It was very interesting and very useful. And I hope that our listeners have really good experience to know more about multi-cloud and about Kubernetes and G-Core Labs and Red Hat. So I want to invite you to meet to our after party. Link is in chat box. So thank you guys. It was perfect and brilliant.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye bye.
Yeah, bye, 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 bye.